In this video, we're going to cover the steps needed to record a login workflow using Venari Ultimate Edition. The steps needed to record a login workflow are to launch the recorder, capture the individual action paths, which walk the recorder through what you need to click and where you need to input text, then running a playback test, finally saving the workflow, adding the workflow to an existing template, and then running a scan and verifying that the login actually worked correctly. These are the steps you need to onboard a new application from a simple pair of credentials. So let's get started. We're going to create a login workflow for the WebGoat application. WebGoat is a learning lab to practice application security concepts. It's freely downloadable as a Docker image. It has a simple login that requires only a pair of credentials, so we're going to use that as our example. To begin recording, what we do is we click WebGoat on the Venari landing page. Then we go to the Automation tab, and we see this record button, and simply click it. The workflow player will launch on the desktop and open up a browser to the right of it, taking up most of the screen. It's not shown in this video because I've clipped it out, but it's important that when this process is initializing, there'll be a spinner showing progress as the WebSocket connection to the browser is getting initiated. It's important not to do anything in the recorder until that spinner has stopped. So if you notice here, we've already established connection. When I click this, we see that the name shows up at the bottom. It's called New Workflow. I'm going to change that to WebGoat Login. And then we're going to begin the recording process. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to teach the recorder the steps needed to go through the various controls in the login form to get the user logged in. So it looks like this. I'm going to paste the URL into the screen. I'm going to click the Alt key, and we go into selection mode. You can probably notice the little grids and rulers, and then I just click the username. I don't type anything here. I've just exited selection mode. I'm going to hit the Alt key again to enter selection mode, and then I'm going to click the password control, and we exit selection mode. I'm going to click the Alt key one more time, and click the sign in button, and then click it to exit. So we recorded our steps to make the login happen, and we want to make sure that we've gotten it right so that those can be replayed, that the browser can reacquire the correct controls during playback. So before I press the play button, which will actually confirm that we've done everything correctly, I just want to kind of point out some things over here. These are the individual steps that are part of the workflow. These were recorded during the Alt click sequence that we did before. And when I click the play button, the browser is going to animate into action, and I'm going to be asked for some information first to kind of guide it through filling out the right values. So for the endpoint, it's important to only put the host port and scheme and not the full URL that we navigate it to. So in this case, localhost 8080. We know the username and we know the password. So let's give it a try, see what happens. As the steps are getting played on the right, you can kind of see the sequence going down the left as well. So we look over and we can see we've got a pretty good login, so we're feeling good about that. So the next step is to save it. So we've recorded a good workflow, and we've verified that it works and that the playback steps actually get you logged in. So before I demonstrate how to save it, I wanted to bring up one item about auto login. There's a feature in Venari called auto login, which allows you to specify just the username and password, and it will kind of automatically figure out the steps that we're recording here. So for very simple logins where it's just a username and password and a submit button on a single form, auto login works almost all of the time. We're using WebGoat as a simple demonstrator to show how to use the workflow recorder, but for this application we really don't need to do that. It's just a demonstration. So I want to point out something else here. So a workflow is really defined as a sequence of steps. It can be a mixture of pure traffic navigations and browser interactions. So if I look at this YAML markup tab, I can see there's this interesting language which is expressing the steps in the workflow. We need to get this captured onto the clipboard so that we can save the workflow and use it in a template later on. So to do that, it's very simple. You just click the copy button and then you have it on your clipboard. Now that we have the YAML version of the workflow on our clipboard, we can close the recorder itself. And I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to zoom in on the Venari screen to show how to attach it, to fully save it and then attach it to a template. Closing the recorder brings us back into the main Venari UI. We're still in the Automation tab. So at this point, remember, we've got the YAML on the clipboard. So we click Add, and all we have to do is paste it in here with a Control-V, click the Add button, and the workflow shows up right here. And it's now part of the automation collection, so it's embedded in the workspace for this application. This is a reusable asset, and in the next section I'm going to show you how to attach it to an existing template so you can make that template run a scan that gets login done first. So now that we've saved the workflow, we want to be able to use it in scan templates. So to do that, we go to the Templates tab. We select this one template exploit, which I created for this application before I started recording this tutorial. Click the name of it, go to the Workflows tab, and you should see a list here of all the workflows that are in that automation collection from earlier. I'm going to enable this one. I'm going to select its type, which is login. There will be other videos describing what the other kind of workflows are. They're slightly more complex, but very useful. And then once we've selected that login workflow, we need to put in some basic information that will be stored with the application. So we put the endpoint, remembering to leave off everything except host port and scheme, username, password, and I want to point out that once we've collected this information and hit save, we're not going to have to enter this every time. This is saved as part of the application, so from here on, whenever we run a scan, this workflow will actually run at the beginning to get us logged in. And in a minute, I'm going to demonstrate how we kick the scan off and verify that the login actually worked in the context of a scan. Now that the template is set up and saved, we're going to actually run a scan that uses it. So I go to the landing page by clicking the icon in the upper left. I go into the WebGoat application, and I just hit the play button on the name of the template. And then we wait for the scan to spin up. Now that the scan is running, the optimization phase takes just a few seconds, and we should see a dialog, there it is, that the login workflow is running. So this is the browser headlessly and invisibly walking through the steps that we recorded and applying the credential information that we set in the template and then pumping that state information back into the running Venari app. So we can see here that the scan is off and running. That means it thinks it's logged in. So how do we know? The way to check is to go to this browser tab, and it's got an interesting view of kind of the stream of clicks and other actions that you can take, and we can look at these individual snapshots, and when we click one, we'll get a screen grab. And what we can see here is that we've basically, with the little user icon, verified that we have been logged in to the WebGoat application. At this point, the scan is running fully headlessly. As logouts are detected, this workflow will be replayed again to reobtain login as needed, and the scan is fully point and shoot. So that's the whole process for setting up a login workflow using the workflow recorder. In this tutorial, we've learned how to launch the recorder, how to capture the various action paths needed to complete the login form, how to do a playback retest to make sure that everything worked, how to save and name the workflow to be able to be reused by different templates, how to connect that login workflow to an explicit template, and then how to run a scan and verify that the login was working correctly, and to go from basically zero to having a fully onboarded point and shoot scan using the workflow recorder. If you want to get a free demo and a free trial of Venari Ultimate Edition, visit our website and just click on the request demo form.